songs you were singing down so perfectly that you wouldn't make a mistake when the cameras were rolling, and you were seen live in front of millions of people. When I arrived at the recording studio for the first session, it was filled with people, most of whom I had never met. There was a sense of peace and calm, and everyone was friendly, warm, and welcoming, quite different from what I was used to in television. My spirits began to lift immediately. This was amazing because it was an early morning session, which means I had not had much time to work out of my traditional early morning depression. During the first break of the day, I met more of the singers, musicians, and recording crew. They all had certain common qualities about them that I found very appealing. A sense of simplicity, fullness, and purpose. Someone might question how I could identify a sense of fullness, and I don't know how to explain it except to say that it stood in stark contrast to my own emptiness. I could also sense that they were not into drugs, alcohol, and promiscuity. Again, there was that contrast. My friend Terry was the contractor on this session, which meant she was in charge of hiring all the singers. She was one of the best studio singers in Los Angeles, and I had worked with her often. She always sang the lead, and I would stand next to her and sing second. I think she liked working with me because I never tried to compete with her. Instead, I recognized her expertise and tried to blend as well as I could with what she did. She took me under her wing at this session because she was aware that I didn't know many of the people there. We were all singing 3 to a microphone. On our microphone, Terry was in the middle, and another girl and I were on either side of her, looking off the same metal music stand. After that first break was over and we were recording again, I reached up to adjust my headphones. When I brought my hand down, the gold ring on my hand hit the metal music stand and made a loud bang. That brought the session to an immediate halt. This was back in the days when there were none of the technological tricks studios have today. A mistake of this magnitude meant we had to start that whole section of music all over again, which was not good because it had been perfect up to that point. I feared that my recording career was over. Normally, something like this could have been enough to keep me from getting called to work again. It wasn't just that I had made a mistake. It was the money it cost the producers for the time involved in having to record it all over again. I felt badly about what happened and apologized profusely. I expected to receive angry glares, a severe shunning at lunch break, and a call asking me to not come back for the rest of the sessions. Instead, everyone acted like it was no big deal, and as if they still valued me as a person. The only thing that happened was that the conductor politely said if anyone else was wearing rings or bracelets, we should remove them, which we all did. I felt like crying at that point, not just because of making the mistake, but because of the love and mercy I had been shown. It was not the norm in my experience. It was on our lunch break, when we went out together in a large group, that I learned that everyone on the session was a Christian, except me. They all talked about their futures, some of which I gathered were even more precarious than mine, yet none of them feared the future as I did. I feared I didn't have one. They knew they had one, because they understood God had a plan for their lives. They said that as long as they walked in the will of God, their future was secure in His hands. I had never heard of such a thing. Obviously, their God was different from the gods I had been pursuing. He was personal. He was warm. He had a plan for each person's life. I didn't say anything about my situation because I did not want to expose that I wasn't a Christian and possibly embarrass Terry. She already knew that I was not a believer, but I didn't think the others did. Now, looking back, I'm sure they all knew. They were probably as much aware of my emptiness as I was of their fullness. Each day of the sessions, I found myself increasingly attracted to the sense of purpose these people had about their lives. I wanted that so badly, but I didn't know how I could ever get close to it. I was sure that a person must have to be born under a different star than I was in order to attain it, yet I couldn't get the idea of God's will out of my mind. I wonder if God has a plan for my life, I thought to myself. That would mean I didn't have to make life happen. But what if His plan